You needn't appear in person, Your Excellency.
It's essential that this crisis needs to be addressed, but let us...
It's fine. Assemble the 8 company captains. I'll speak with them.
Hello everybody, Megazard X-Man. I'm back at it again to give y'all another review for Fire Force. However, this time it's going to be a little bit different. As some of y'all may have known, from my episode 9 review, I said due to some unfortunate family circumstances, I was going to be unable to review episode 10 at the time whenever that episode dropped. But I did say when episode 11 comes out, I'll go back over and recap episode 10 and give my thoughts over what I thought about that episode, and then I'll transition into the review for episode 11. So for this review, it's going to be a 2-for-1. So first I'll talk about episode 10, and then I'll transition over to episode 11. Now, if you hadn't already done so, you can check out my episode 9 review up there in the corner, so you can check that video out, and then come back and check this one, though. But overall, for episode 10, oh gosh, that's where they really got the ball going, and man, there's a lot I want to talk about and discuss about episode 10. Episode 10 is extremely plot heavy, so I'll try to go over all the details on that, and that's why it kind of sucks that I was unable to review that episode at the time though, but that's where all of the meat and potatoes is. And then episode 11, I kind of feeling a little iffy about it. The first half of the episode I really liked, but then the second half, I don't know, I kind of got a little bit mixed on it, but I'll talk about all of that when I get to it though. So go ahead and sit back and relax as I'm about to talk over episode 10 being The Promise, and then episode 11 being the formation of Special Fire Force Company 8.
Lucky my butt.
Hey, did the two of you want it?
Wow!
Hinoa, she's playing with fire inside the office.
I need to make sure we take the best route to Central.
There's a great bakery not too far from here.
Yeah, we know. It's the best. Lucky and I go all the time.
Yeah, they just updated their menu. They've got more savories. The cakes have always been good.
The place sure has gotten lively.
Alright, so at the beginning of episode 10, we basically are picking up right from the events at the end of episode 9 after a mysterious group that was all decked out in white clothes and white robes and everything else. They basically shot down Rekka, and then, you know, everybody was kind of trying to figure out, okay, what is this new hidden force or this new hidden group that are actually, you know, there's not much known about them. So in order to try to figure out all the details that was kind of going around this situation and all of these events, the Emperor of Tokyo actually gathers all of the battalion commanders so they're able to discuss about all of these events that kind of happened around Company 1 and that whole entire incident. And, you know, Captain Obi was basically like, because when they were traveling over there, he basically said, hey, out of all of my time being a commander, this is the first time we ever gathered around all of the battalion commanders like that. And in that vehicle, you basically saw, it was basically, you know, Captain Obi, Lieutenant Hinoa, along with Hibana, and then they even brought, of course, being Shinra, since he was, you know, associated right at the core of all of that situation, along with Tamaki, because, you know, due to their situation, how they were actually involved within that whole incident, they had, you know, firsthand experience with it, so they were able to provide, you know, valuable information to the whole entire meeting and everything. So then you saw all of these commanders kind of gathered around in here, and you had the Emperor, you know, basically trying to spearhead the whole entire meeting. And, you know, at first, you know, all of these commanders, you know, they really don't like to get along with each other that much. And even before the thing started, you saw one of the commanders basically talk to Hibana. It's like, hey, how come you're getting so kind of buddy close to, you know, Company 8? You know, we have like an alliance to Hajime Industry though, but she kind of plays it off of him and says, you know what, you know, you mind your P's and Q's and I'll mind mine. don't worry about me, even though, you know, we know that she's on our side now. So they're basically talking about, you know, all of the events that kind of happened with that. And we figure out the name of the organization of these people in white clothes, and they're actually called the White Clad. And not too much is known about the White Clad at the moment, though. But Shinra basically says, you know, they were after kind of just like one rare individual, because Rekka was, you know, it was hard for him to find that one person that, you know, could suit the abilities and the characteristics for the person that he was working with, that was kind of hiring him and giving him, you know, the commands from up high, and that was the Evangelist. And, you know, he was working underneath the Evangelist, though. But what they were actually, the name of the thing that they were actually looking for was actually called the Adora Burst. And the Adora Burst was essentially a rare flame that is super rare among the third generation firefighters or fire soldiers. So that's essentially what they're looking for, the Adora Burst. And it's basically, I guess, what we can kind of think of as like a rare power that kind of keeps them pure, that, you know, there could be like a hidden, untapped potential with that. So that all resides within Shinra. However, you know, there's other companies out there that Hibana told Captain Obi that, hey, they want to kind of get to Shinra just so that they can experiment on them as well. So now they're, you know, Captain Obi kind of jumped up and basically said, hey, we don't need, you know, Shinra to be put underneath any kind of special protection against the White Clad or anything like that. He's doing perfectly fine within, you know, the protection of my company 8. And so basically, you know, that's the main kind of gist that was kind of going down with that meeting. However, outside of that meeting, Joker, who we hadn't seen, you know, several episodes earlier within the series, he finally shows back up again, and he was, you know, radio tapping sort of kind of into the meeting and basically, you know, picking up within hidden knowledge that was going down in that meeting. So basically, once the meeting was all over with, you know, Captain Obi came back with almost everybody else, and one of the members questioned, hey, where was Shinra at? And he was like, oh, he's just picking up some groceries and he's on his way back. He'll be back here a little later. However, on his way back, he actually ran into and confronted Joker. So, he, you know, after the last confrontation, when Joker basically blew up that whole entire facility where they were having that special event with all the other companies, he was about ready to throw down with the man. However, Joker was like, hey, I'm not here to fight. I'm just going to give you some information that, you know, might pique your curiosity. So Shinra was patient enough to where he was able to hear the man out. And basically, the biggest takeaway that he took away from Joker was the matter of fact that his brother is still alive. And, you know, Shinra still was sort of kind of feeling skeptical about, you know, thinking back to the flashback, how, you know, everything around him basically burned up. He pretty much thought that his brother was dead. And the real unfortunate thing about all of this thing was not the matter of fact that Sho is still alive, but Sho is actually associated with the White Clad. Now that basically sent goosebumps up Shinra, like, you telling me that my brother is actually still alive, but not that he's only alive, but he's actually working with the enemy? Nah, this really can't be. And so this really kind of basically shakes Shinra up pretty badly. And then essentially Joker kind of excuses himself, and then Shinra, you know, heads back home. And Lieutenant Hinawa was basically able to tell, you know, how Shinra was feeling. And he knew basically something was kind of off with him. And he basically had like a heart-to-heart, you know, after they were kind of, you know, cutting up some vegetables and stuff and trying to get dinner ready. And he basically had a heart-to-heart. You know, he basically sparked it up, and then it got even stronger when the rest of the whole Company 8 was around him. And essentially, they were like, hey, you know, you can tell us anything. You don't have to worry about keeping secrets or anything like that. So then he basically told him some of the stuff that Joker told him about, you know, his brother being Sho, how he could possibly be associated with the White Clad and everything, though. And then Captain Obi's basically like, well, whatever plans we have to also keep in mind that, you know, Shinra's brother could be associated with it. So we're going to put this all into our plan and, you know, plan around it for, you know, the possibility that Sho is associated with the White Clad. So that definitely takes a huge relief off of Shinra. Now, the interesting thing is the stuff at the very end where we see, towards the very end of the episode, we see all these members of the White Clad, and they're basically almost kind of doing like a sort of kind of like a prayer-ish kind of thing. And we were like, oh, okay, so this is kind of where their home base was at. But at the very end, you see this mysterious white boy, and this mysterious white boy that seems to be kind of like the ringleader of this group, and that is actually Sho, Shinra's little brother, basically leading this group of the White Clad. Now, is he the evangelist? That's where things is unknown. I don't necessarily think that, Sho is actually the evangelist though, but for whatever reason, or for whatever circumstances, he's basically leading this, he's basically leading the White Clad, as Joker kind of told Shinra earlier in the episode though. So this also kind of raises some questions with me as to like, why in the world is Joker telling him all this information? It's like, you think Joker would almost been an antagonist based upon some of the stunts that he pulled, but at the same time, if he's telling Shinra basically all these truths, I'm trying to figure out what kind of angle is he truly working. Like, for example, he could be one of those characters that are kind of like an antagonist, but not really. Like, for example, if you looked at Hunter x Hunter and you look at Hisoka, he basically was one of those people that basically seemed like an enemy, but at times was basically sort of kind of like an ally, depending on the situation, whatever story arc you were in Hunter x Hunter. He could basically be like one of those types of characters within this anime. So we still have to wait, further into the series to kind of figure out where exactly on the line he stands on, because right now he's a character that's really on the fence though. But yeah, that's basically all for episode 10, The Promise though. But make sure to stay tuned as I'm about to get ready to transition over into episode 11 of Fire Force.
Thanks so much, sir.
We will set all lost souls alight, burn the earth beneath our feet, and make this planet a flaming sun, a scorched throne worthy of God. All is in accordance with the will of the evangelist, Latom.
This is the incident report that seems most likely to be connected to these White-clad attacks.
That's right. It's from our first job. Sister Iris and Maki had only just joined up with the 8th. We were all new.
That kind of makes me curious. How'd the 8th start in the first place?
It's a long story, but it relates to the heart of Company 8, so it's worth telling. Lieutenant, tell them how we got started.
So moving on to episode 11 of Fire Force, we had the formation of Special Fire Force Company 8. And this episode can really be divided into two main parts. One being a history lesson, and then the second part being basically the current events part. So we're going to start by tackling this first half of the episode though. So essentially, Captain Obi was gathering around his Company 8, and they're basically talking about, the next steps and, the next plans for the next mission and what they're about to do next. However, during their conversation, it kind of came up where they were talking about how in the world the Company 8 originally started, since at that time, whenever the company was fairly new, they used to only have Maki and Sister Iris up in there along with Captain Obi and Lieutenant Hinawa. But then everybody started getting curious about how did Company 8 just start, because out of all the other companies, they're like one of the youngest companies out there, and you can basically kind of see it based upon the low numbers that are within their fire brigade and everything else. So essentially, Captain Obi essentially told Hinawa to basically give the breakdown story and the history lesson of how Company 8 essentially started. So then we rewind several years ago, and we basically have a little history lesson between Captain Obi and Lieutenant Hinawa. So at the very beginning, they basically showed Hinawa, and he was sitting down with his friend, and his friend was called Tojo, and they were basically sitting around, and basically Lieutenant Hinawa, before he was in Company 8, he was basically a soldier for the land and everything else. Essentially, he was talking with his friend, and they were just having some idle chit chat and whatever though. And then you actually see Maki walking up towards them, and she was basically she was like a younger self. It didn't seem like she actually changed too much between this time that they showed her in the past as compared to what she looks like nowadays. I don't know. I don't know exactly how many years it actually was, but essentially, you know, she was like basically a sweet person. She, you know, it was before, you know, she kind of developed her muscles and stuff, and she was a daughter of another lieutenant that, you know, Hinawa was basically working with and everything else. But you basically got to see her back in the past, and, you know, she kind of walked away though, and they were basically talking about, you know, whether their gun was baptized or whatever, and they were trying to see, you know, and Tojo was basically recommending to Hinawa to say, hey, would you rather get shot by a standard gun or a baptized gun? 'Cause I'm pretty sure you would rather get shot by a baptized gun. And then, you know, Lieutenant Hinawa was basically saying, well, I don't quite believe in the sun god and everything else though, but you was basically taking sort of kind of a consideration though. And then essentially you basically see them back at their private quarters, you know, back within their room. And, you know, one of them was laying down, the other one was sitting in a chair, and all out of nowhere, Tojo starts randomly, spontaneously combusting and basically turning into an infernal. This shocks Hinawa and basically throws him in a state of shock, and he was like, oh man, what do I do now? And then Tojo was basically saying, hey, shoot me, kill me in my suffering before I lose control and basically lose myself. And Hinawa was basically, you know, frightened, you know, extremely shocked, and he basically could not get himself to basically pull that trigger on him. And then the rest of the squad that was basically around, you know, living around them, basically knocked the door down. They saw him as an infernal, and they didn't even hesitate, and they basically shot and mowed down Tojo. And then that was basically the end of one of his good best friends. And then the episode kind of jumps to a later incident where you basically see a Fire Force company basically trying to handle an infernal outbreak, and there was like a few of them that was kind of going around. One being a couple of them being more savage, the infernals, you know, causing damage or whatever. And then there was this one that was just basically chilling and waiting out at their house, basically sort of kind of keeping some of the mindset of his previous human life, where, you know, he was just patiently waiting there. He wasn't causing any damage or nothing like that though. And it basically got this woman to worry, and basically she was like, hey, can you essentially take care of my husband in his suffering right now, because he's not doing too good. And basically that fire company, they basically said, hey, you know, that one's not a threat, we'll take care of the big threats first. And they basically kind of put her to the side. And then we see, you know, Captain Obi, who was actually a firefighter at the time. So basically, you know, firefighters, they only took care of the fire parts, while the fire soldiers will actually deal with the infernals themselves. So back at the time, he was only a firefighter, and he basically heard out to the woman's plea, like, you know what, I'll do it for you. So he steps up and does that. And however, you know, right as soon as he was about to, you know, leave and head off, Lieutenant Hinawa, that just happened to be standing by watching all of this go, or not Lieutenant Hinawa at the time, but, you know, Lieutenant Hinawa, you know, in our current time, so just Hinawa. He basically showed up and basically said, hey, you know what are you about to do? And he basically caught Obi as he was about to prepare. And he's like, you know what, I'll come along and tag team with you. So they head up to the base, and then Captain Obi once again reaffirmed that, said, hey, you know, what we're about to do is sort of kind of illegal. You know, with me being a firefighter and you being a soldier, if we go past this line, you know, get caught or something like that, you know, there could be major repercussions. But Hinawa was like, you know what? He's like, I don't even care, because I'm trying to do the right thing. And basically, you know, all those thoughts of him, you know, being with his friend Tojo and not being able to put that infernal to rest, this basically was giving him an opportunity to be able to, you know, redeem himself in such a way. And then they go up in there and they see the man in the room, kind of in the corner. And it basically kind of brings back flashbacks for Hinawa, and essentially, you know, recalling those events of what happened with Tojo. But Obi kind of gave him that assurance and confidence to basically, you know, do what needed to be done. And essentially they were able to put the infernal to rest, and all was good. And then Captain Obi essentially, he basically said, you know what, I'm gonna form a fire company whenever I can, sometime in the future, and whenever I do, would you like to be a part of it? And Hinawa was basically yes, because basically Captain Obi's goal was basically to end, you know, spontaneous human combustion for good, and to find the cause of it, and basically, you know, get rid of it for good, so that way everybody can have a peaceful life. and Hinawa was all about that. And then you jump down a little later in time, and then they basically got the area that you know, Company 8 was basically residing in now. And it was a little bit run down. It's not like your top tier like what we saw with Company 1's you know, headquarters was at. It wasn't super nice like that, but it basically got the job done. And then, you know, Captain Obi was like, you know what? I only want people on my squad I know I can fully trust. People that are like-minded just like me. And then Hino was like, you know what? I got a recommendation for you. And that was basically Maki, who, you know, we know, you know, with him being a soldier and everything though. And that's how Maki got introduced. And then later on they managed to get Iris as well. And that's basically the history of Company 8. So it was all interesting to see exactly how Company 8, you know, managed to come and be. Then that was it for the history part of the lesson. And then they basically said, all right, now we're back into the current events, and now they're basically trying to figure out some leads on, you know, these white clad members and where they popped up. And then they basically figured out that, hey, we found the jurisdiction area where one of the fire companies, it's in the same area as one of the fire companies. So they decided to pay a visit towards the person where it was situated, where that white clad person actually showed up at. So from there, that lead led them to the 7th Special Fire Brigade's jurisdiction district, where Captain Benimaru was basically the head captain of that 7th Fire Force company. Now, this is where I kind of got a little mixed on the episode, as, you know, essentially this dude is what Shinra stated within the episode as one of the strongest fire captains within the whole entire force. Out of all of the different, you know, fire captains from all of the different companies, the 7th Special Fire Brigade's Captain Benimaru was actually said to be the strongest one. Yet, however, this dude was basically so chill and so laid back, where it was kind of like you wouldn't expect this out of you know, one of the strongest ones. Like, I would have thought normally, you know, Company 1's Fire Force captain would have actually been like stronger based upon his, you know, heated personality and everything. It kind of suited him a little bit better though, but to see this dude be the strongest one, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of offset me a little bit though. But I will say, I don't know, this dude, I don't know, it's just something different about him. As you saw during the episode, whenever, you know, the Infernal basically broke out and it was actually one of his friends, he basically, you know, jumped and leaped into action. He was just blowing down a whole bunch of different houses. And it was like, wait, are you trying to put the Infernal out? Or are you trying to blow down the whole entire town? So I couldn't quite get that grasp. And he basically took out the Infernal. And then, you know, it was kind of like a, you know, it was not quite like a bittersweet moment though. But it was kind of like a moment where, you know, he put his friend out. So it was good that he put his friend out, but he was upset, you know, that, you know, his friend basically went infernal though. But basically the whole, you know, the whole village and this whole town area where the 7th Brigade is at, they basically said, hey, they basically put that into like a whole bunch of, not like a whole bunch of, they basically viewed the whole entire thought of saying, hey, if you go infernal, to be laid to rest by Benimaru is such a treat or such a joy, that, you know, to basically be put out by Benimaru, who's, you know, the person that could, you know, lay all infernals to rest. And they think that it's just a great honor to do that. And it's actually was kind of cool seeing, you know, how they were able to throw those like sort of kind of that look like moppish kind of things, and they were basically shooting those all around and basically, you know, being able to, you know, make shots on the infernals and stuff. However, it was kind of weird how they were basically blowing up the whole entire town though. I don't quite get that, but it was kind of cool to see the display of action, but it was kind of, you know, it had me a little bit mixed on the way how they did it, and, you know, how all of that destruction was basically laying out though. But I was basically sort of kind of thinking on the same lines as Shinra. Me and him were basically sort of kind of on the same wavelengths, as we were kind of trying to understand what kind of angle was this dude kind of working from, because at one point, you know, it seemed like he didn't want to be cooperative, and he told like the 8, you know, Company 8 to basically, you know, I don't want to see y'all again. Like, I don't want to associate or even work with y'all. But at the same time, he did put the Infernal to rest. But at the same time, he destroyed half of the village at the same time. It's like, okay. I was like, you're sort of kind of good, but yet sort of kind of it doesn't seem like you want to fully help, but yet you're causing all this damage. I don't know. It's just kind of hard to get this read on Captain Benimaru though, but I don't know. It's just something about that second half of the episode. I don't know. It just didn't kind of stick with me as much as I like the first half of the episode. And I'm not even one that, you know, is usually super big on backstory because it takes you out of the action a little bit though. But the way how they executed the first half of the episode was really good. But the second half, I don't know. I kind of felt a little indifferent about it though. But I don't know. But that's essentially all there is to episode 11. Episode 11 wasn't super plot heavy as it was with episode 10 though. But that's basically all my thoughts for episode 11 though. So that is pretty much it for my review of episode 10 being The Promise and episode 11 being the formation of Special Fire Force Company 8. So if you really like this video, go ahead and drop a like, and also feel free to subscribe and hit that bell button as well, so you can keep up to date on all things that are Fire Force that I'm reviewing and covering. And also, I also created a video where it was actually explaining that we have a little bit of an unfortunate incident, as for the next episode being, you know, Fire Force episode 12, it's actually being delayed. And there's a card up there in the corner that basically breaks down everything that was kind of going around with that situation. It's not, you know, for like a bad reason, so to say though, but due to certain events that happened in Tokyo, they have to basically delay the broadcast for about a couple of weeks though. But just make sure to click that card in the corner, or I'll leave a link at the very end of this episode where it'll basically show, you know, out of all of those different videos that I have recommended at the very end of the episode, I'll leave one of those areas where you can click on that and it will take you to the update video on that though. So essentially, yeah, it'll be a little while until we have another Fire Force episode to watch, which means, hey, for that limited amount of time, there won't be a Fire Force episode for me to review though. So it allows me to have a little bit of a break, and also kind of lets me kind of prepare and kind of do some different things with the channel, at least for me though. But overall, that is it for my review for episode 10 and episode 11. So make sure to tune in next time for episode 12 being Eve of Hostilities in Asukasa. And it'll be a while before we have that episode though, but when the episode drops, you can make sure to tune right back here on my channel, and I'll be able to go all over it and be able to cover it to the best of my ability. So until whatever video I make next, see ya.
Benny can wield both 2nd generation and 3rd generation powers. Unlike any other, he's a compound fire soldier.
Way to hang in there, friend.